Chaos erupting at a Mexico airport after the death of El Mencho, one of the country's most powerful cartel leaders.
The most important thing at this moment is to guarantee peace and safety of all the population.
Imagine waking up to the news that one of the most powerful criminal masterminds on the planet has been taken down. It sounds like something straight out of a movie, doesn't it? But this isn't fiction, folks. This is the reality we're facing after the death of Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, better known as El Mencho, the head of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. Now, you might be asking, what happens when the kingpin of one of the most violent cartels in Mexico gets eliminated? Is it a victory for law enforcement, or is it the spark that ignites an even more dangerous wildfire? Well, buckle up because we're about to dive into what comes next. For years, El Mencho's CJNG has been at the top of the criminal food chain in Mexico. They didn't just run drugs, they ran in terror. They spread their influence across borders, from North America to the heart of Latin America. And now, with their leader gone, it's not just about the loss of one man, it's about what his death means for the cartel's future, Mexico's security, and even the global drug trade. The news of El Mencho's death sent shockwaves across the world. The reaction? Immediate and violent. What we're seeing right now is the beginning of something big. A cartel without its leader is like a lion without its pride. It's disoriented, vulnerable, but also dangerously desperate. El Mencho's death isn't just a leadership vacuum. It's a call to arms, a cry for power, control, and revenge. And if there's one thing cartels know how to do, it's exacting retribution. Think about it. This is a group that has risen to power not by playing nice, but by throwing the rulebook out the window and rewriting the laws of violence. El Mencho's death? It's not just a chapter, it's a cliffhanger, leaving us on the edge of our seats. Now, as the dust settles, we're witnessing something we've seen time and time again in the cartel world: vengeance. When a leader is taken out, it's not just the cartel that feels the pain. It's the families, the innocent lives caught in the crossfire. It's the law enforcement officers who are marked for death. And it's the entire region, bracing for the next wave of bloodshed. But here's the twist. This isn't just about a few ruthless gangsters looking to get even. No, this is about power, territory, and the deadly dance of cartels trying to outlast each other in a game where there are no winners, just survivors. Now, before we dive deeper into the what's next, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The killing of El Mencho doesn't just affect Mexico, it ripples across borders. This is a transnational game, where Mexico's war on drugs is tied into the US's efforts to fight drug cartels and China's growing influence on the global fentanyl trade. When El Mencho was in power, he played a major role in the global distribution network of fentanyl, methamphetamines, and cocaine. So, you might be wondering, why does this matter to someone sitting in the US, Canada, or even Europe? Because the cartels, like the CJNG, aren't just dealing drugs in their backyard. They're dealing them to yours. And, here's a little irony. For years, we've heard politicians talk about cracking down on cartels, enforcing stricter laws, but at the end of the day, it seems like these cartels just keep finding new ways to innovate their methods. I mean, if only the government had a cartel deterrent app, Cartel Buster, now 50% more effective than last year. But in all seriousness, as funny as that might sound, this is no laughing matter. It's a complex web of violence, corruption, and international intrigue, and we've just scratched the surface. As we move forward in this story, remember, the death of El Mencho is just the beginning of the storm that's coming. Cartels aren't just going to sit back and allow this void to remain. Oh no, the vacuum left by his death is ripe for the taking. And there are rivals out there who are waiting to pick up the pieces. So, who's next? Who's going to step up to fill El Mencho's shoes? And what will this mean for the lives of millions of innocent people caught in the crossfire? This is just the start of a much larger and darker chapter in the world of organized crime, and the consequences are far from over. We will dive into what's next for the cartels and their bloody revenge. We need to understand the rise of El Mencho. How did he get here? What made him so powerful? And why did it take this long to bring him down? Now, we're not talking about a man who grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. Far from it. El Mencho's story is one of struggle, ambition, and, let's face it, pure criminal genius. It's the kind of rise to power you might read about in history books, except instead of diplomacy, his weapon of choice was violence. And his kingdom wasn't built on treaties, it was built on blood. Let's go back to the start. Born in the 1960s in Michoacan, Mexico, El Mencho didn't have the cushy life that many would assume a cartel leader might have had. He didn't come from a family of criminals, he didn't have wealth, and he certainly wasn't born into the life of organized crime, but he learned the ropes quickly. In fact, his rise wasn't just about power, it was about survival. He was raised in a world where the most important rule was, if you're not tough, you don't last. And he was tough. But here's the twist. El Mencho didn't start his criminal empire by going straight into drug trafficking. Oh no. His first steps into the world of crime? Kidnapping. That's right. Before he became the king of the CJNG, El Mencho was known for his brutal kidnapping rings. But it wasn't until the late 1980s when he made his real move. He joined the ranks of the infamous Milenio Cartel, a powerful crime syndicate that would later merge with other groups and form the CJNG. Think about that. A man who started out with kidnapping, not even in the major leagues yet, but working his way up from the very bottom. It's almost like a rags to riches story, except the riches came with a heavy price tag. And when you climb the ranks of a cartel, it's not a story where everyone gets a happy ending. Most people don't survive the climb, and El Mencho did. By the early 2000s, El Mencho was already making moves that would solidify his position in Mexico's criminal underworld. He switched gears and entered the methamphetamine trade, a trade that would change the course of his entire life. While others were still selling cocaine, El Mencho was innovating. He realized that methamphetamine was a gold mine, and by the mid-2000s, he had taken full control of the market, not just in Mexico, but across the United States. By this point, El Mencho wasn't just a local gangster, he was a mastermind. Here's the kicker. While all of this was happening, El Mencho was building a network, an international network. The CJNG didn't just operate in Mexico, they were running operations in Brazil, the US, and even parts of Asia. They didn't just traffic drugs, they trafficked violence. They brought fear with them wherever they went. Corruption ran deep in every level of government, law enforcement, and military, making it almost impossible to stop their operations. And then came the infamous Plaza Bosses, the men and women who ran territories across Mexico, acting like mini feudal lords. They worked for El Mencho, and their loyalty wasn't to their country, it was to him. These plaza bosses were brutal, and their job was simple: maintain control of their territories by any means necessary. Violence, torture, extortion. But there's something to be said about El Mencho's leadership. It wasn't just the power, it was the fear. People respected him because of the bloodshed he was willing to unleash. And fear? Well, that's a powerful tool when you want to control everything around you. He didn't just want to be a drug lord, he wanted to be a kingpin, he wanted to rule. But how does a man get to that point? How does someone rise from being a poor kid in Mexico to controlling one of the largest and most violent cartels in the world? It's a combination of things. Ruthless ambition, a deep understanding of the criminal world, and the ability to keep moving. Because the moment you stop, you're vulnerable. In the cartel world, vulnerability equals death. And El Mencho? Well, he never stopped moving. Now, let's fast forward to where we are today. The CJNG has become one of the most formidable, violent organizations in the world. They've expanded into various illicit industries: human trafficking, money laundering, you name it. But it's their drug empire that makes them untouchable. But here's the problem. El Mencho's death leaves a void, a huge gap in power, and as we know, when one kingpin falls, another rises. This vacuum, it's dangerous. And that brings us to the question, who's next? Who is going to rise to take El Mencho's place? The CJNG has several loyal followers, but none quite like him. El Mencho wasn't just a leader, he was the beating heart of the cartel. But with him gone, this power struggle, it's just beginning. What will the future of the CJNG look like? More bloodshed, more terror, more international chaos? The death of El Mencho might have seemed like a victory for law enforcement, but it's the beginning of something much darker, and the world is about to find out just how far-reaching that darkness goes. We've seen the rise of El Mencho, the violent ascent of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, and the chaos his death has unleashed. Now the real question is, what happens next? What does the world look like after the fall of one of the most dangerous figures in modern criminal history? And more importantly, who will fill the void? As we know, the death of a kingpin is rarely the end. In fact, it's often just the beginning of an even more dangerous game. But there's one thing you can count on. The fight for power will be bloody. The cartel world doesn't hand out leadership roles like a corporate boardroom. It's a fight to the death, quite literally. Let's think about this for a second. For the CJNG, El Mencho wasn't just their leader, he was their soul. Without him, they're a team without a coach, a band without a conductor, and that means chaos. Sure, there are others within the cartel who are itching to take over, but replacing a man like El Mencho, that's a tall order. And here's the thing, this power struggle, it's already spilling out onto the streets. Rival factions, new alliances, and old enemies are all going to be battling for control over the CJNG's operations. Who's stepping up? Well, reports say that several key figures within the CJNG are looking to stake their claim. Abigail Gonzalez, a trusted ally of El Mencho, is one name that keeps popping up. She's a ruthless operator and has been in the shadows for a while. But there's a problem. Gonzalez might have the loyalty of some factions, but she doesn't have the same terrifying presence that El Mencho did. She might be a strong contender, but in the cartel world, strength isn't just about loyalty, it's about fear. But don't count out Omar LZ40 or Carlos El Charo, two known rivals who have their own agendas and are already maneuvering to expand their territories. They're like sharks smelling blood in the water. The question is, who will come out on top? Now let's step back for a moment. Why does this power vacuum matter to anyone outside the cartel world? Why should we care about who controls the CJNG? Here's why. Mexico's security is already at breaking point. This country has been under siege for years, caught in a never-ending battle between cartels, law enforcement, and the government. El Mencho's death, while a small victory for justice, has the potential to spark an all-out war on the streets of Mexico. But it's not just Mexico that's affected. The US is right in the middle of this mess. Remember, the CJNG is one of the biggest suppliers of drugs to the US. They dominate the fentanyl trade, supplying a deadly opioid that has killed thousands. El Mencho's death, it disrupts the flow of drugs, but not for long. There are always those who are ready to step in. It's like a game of musical chairs, except instead of chairs, it's power. And instead of music, it's, well, bullets. So yeah, not really the kind of party you'd want to attend, right? But here's the scary part. This power struggle isn't just about who gets control of the cartel's operations, it's about the consequences that will follow. With El Mencho gone, Mexico is looking at an even more fragmented landscape. New factions are emerging, and that means more violence, more chaos, and more innocent lives at risk. It's almost a guarantee that the CJNG won't just keep things business as usual. Under new leadership, there will be retaliation, brutal retribution, because that's how it works in the cartel world. You never forget, and you never forgive. And those who might think they can take over smoothly, they're wrong. The bloodshed is far from over. You see, this isn't just a fight for territory. This is a fight for legacy. El Mencho built the CJNG from the ground up. His legacy was one of fear, of power that stretched from the streets of Mexico to the darkest corners of the global drug trade. The question now is, what happens to that legacy? Will it crumble under the weight of internal conflicts, or will someone rise to take his place and build an empire that's even more dangerous than what came before? And it's not just about the CJNG anymore. It's about the new world order of cartels. El Mencho's death has shaken the foundation of organized crime, and now it's a race to the top. But make no mistake, this race, it's going to cost lives, a lot of them. The violence that follows will be felt in every corner of Mexico. And beyond that, it's a global concern. The cartel's reach extends far beyond Latin America. When they fight, the rest of the world feels the heat. The US is already grappling with the effects of drug trafficking and violence that spills over its border. So, what happens now? Will the CJNG survive this power struggle, or will it implode under the weight of its own internal warfare? Can Mexico's government find a way to stop the violence, or will they be left to watch as the cartels tear each other apart? And as for the future, how many more leaders will fall before we see an end to this brutal cycle? But we're not done yet. This story is far from over. What do you think will happen next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Will the CJNG crumble, or will someone even more dangerous rise to power? If you're following this, hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe to stay updated. We'll keep you informed as this story unfolds. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.